Welcome to the Untold Affairs. Before we dive into today's story, we have a humble request. Please consider subscribing to this new channel. Help us hit our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers. Your support will motivate us to keep bringing you more exclusive original cheating wife stories. And now let's get started with today's story. Adam Miller, a 38-year-old security expert who owned one of San Francisco's most prestigious security agencies, operated in a world where every move was based on caution and every decision was based on strategy. His company provided security solutions to high-profile clients, big businessmen, politicians, and celebrities. Adam's life looked absolutely perfect from the outside. His wife, Sarah, a charming and confident woman, was a senior project manager at an architecture firm. They had been married for 12 years and had an 8-year-old son, Liam, who was the center of Adam's world. Their home was in one of the most expensive neighborhoods in the city, where every evening Adam's fatigue dissolved into his wife's smile and son's laughter. But there was something inside this perfect-looking house that was slowly spreading like cracks. One Friday evening, as Adam was finishing his last client meeting in his office, his phone rang. It was Sarah's call. "Adam, I'm going to be late today. An emergency meeting has arrived," Sarah said. Adam smiled and replied, "Okay, I'll get Liam dinner. You finish your work." After hanging up, Adam picked Liam out of school and cooked him his favorite pasta dish. But that night, as Adam sat on the couch looking at a copy of Liam's homework, a message flashed on his wife's phone, accidentally left on the counter. "Same place tonight? Can't wait. M." Adam's hands paused. Who was M? His heartbeat quickened. He immediately calmed himself down and left the phone there. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. But this question had sunk deep into Adam's mind. For the next few days, Adam immersed himself in work, but the suspicion was not going away from his mind. He checked the records of Sarah's phone and found that she was often talking to a man named M. Adam now had two choices, either to ignore the truth or to dig deeper into the mystery. Adam chose the second option. One night after Sarah was asleep, Adam opened her laptop and checked her emails and calendar. She found a pattern. Sarah was often meeting with M in the same hotel. The next week, Adam called his trusted colleague, Eric. "I have to find out who Sarah is meeting at these meetings." "Discreetly," Adam said. Eric nodded and began investigating. Within a few days, the truth came out. M was none other than Mark Hamilton, the CEO of Sarah's company. As soon as Adam received this information, the ground slipped from under his feet. His wife, whom he blindly trusted, was having an affair with the CEO of his own company. Adam kept himself calm. Instead of questioning Sarah directly, she decided to clarify the situation further. He put another tracker in Sarah's car and started following her. One night, Adam saw his wife with Mark in the hotel room. Behind the window pane, the laughter and intimacy of the two broke Adam's heart. But he restrained himself. He knew that haste could spoil the work. The next day, Adam met with a lawyer to get the divorce papers ready, but he didn't want to end the story there. He wanted custody of his son Liam. He gathered all the evidence against Mark, CCTV footage of the hotel, call records, and even some bank statements that proved that Mark had sponsored expensive gifts and trips to Sarah. When Adam handed Sarah the divorce papers, Sarah's face turned white. "Adam, I can explain it," she said, crying. But Adam's face was expressionless. "You broke my trust, Sarah. Will you do the same thing to our son?" In the court hearing, Adam presented all the evidence. Mark's name became associated with a major corporate scandal, and Sarah's image emerged as a traitorous wife. The judge gave Liam's custody to Adam. After the divorce, Adam began to rebuild his life. Her relationship with Liam deepened. He threw himself into his work, but there was always an emptiness somewhere inside his heart. Several months later, Adam met a freelance consultant named Claire who was working on a project for his company. Claire's honesty and prudence began to slowly reconnect Adam's broken faith. Adam, however, knew that the wounds of his previous life were not yet healed. The question was, would Adam be able to trust anyone again? Will he be able to make a fresh start with Claire? Or will the shadow of Sarah and Mark's betrayal always hover over his heart and mind? A chilly breeze swept through the clouds that swept over Los Angeles. In some corners of this light-lit city, the secrets of darkness were hidden, and in that darkness a man sat alone. Miles Carter, a 38-year-old security expert who had spent half of his career handling risky situations, was looking out of the large window of his office, looking down at the sprawling city. The tiredness in her eyes and the wrinkles on her face told the story of the difficult experiences of her life. He had a glass of whiskey in his hand, and his eyes were lost somewhere far away. Miles's wife, Allison Carter, was a charming and intelligent woman who was the planner of some of Los Angeles's most prestigious events. They got married 12 years ago, and their relationship was initially like a perfect love story. But over the past few months, some doubts had crept into Miles's mind. Allison's late-night work, the constant messages and calls on her mobile, and above all, the distance in her eyes. It was all bothering Miles inside. "You're thinking too much, Miles," she tried to explain herself, but the experience had taught her that when something feels wrong, it's often the same truth. Suddenly the office door opened and his most trusted colleague, Nicholas Walker, came in. "Boss, you should see this." He placed a file in front of Miles. Miles opened the file and his eyes scanned some photos. In the photos, Allison was with another man. The man, who looked perfect in a suit, had something in his eyes that made Miles uneasy. "Who is this?" asked Miles in a deep voice. "Eric Daniels," Nichols said. "An investment banker. Recently, Allison has appeared in many events." Miles closed the photos and placed his glass on the table. "I'll handle it myself." That night, when Miles arrived home, Allison was sitting in the living room. She had a glass of wine in her hand and she was talking to someone on the phone. When she saw Miles, a slight smile appeared on her face, but the tension hidden in her eyes did not escape Miles. "Why did you come so late?" asked Allison. "Done," Miles replied briefly and headed to the kitchen. Dinner ended quietly. There was silence between the two, crashing against the walls of the room. Miles decides that now he has to face the truth. The next morning, Miles calls Nicholas. "I want you to keep an eye on Eric Daniels' every single move. I want his every meeting, every location, and every contact information." Nicholas nodded and Miles hung up. Allison organized a fundraiser event that day. Miles had received an invitation, but he refused to go. He had other plans. At around 10 p.m., Miles got into his car and headed to the event location. She watched from a distance as Allison and Eric stood in a secluded corner, the closeness between them greater than any normal conversation. Miles's anger was slowly increasing. "Stay calm, Miles," he explained himself. But then Eric put his hand on Allison's shoulder, and that scene caused the volcano within Miles to erupt. He got out of the car and drove straight into the event hall. People stared at him, but he didn't care about anyone. "Allison!" There was anger in her voice. Both Allison and Eric were shocked. The nervousness was evident on Allison's face. "What's going on?" asked Miles, pointing to Eric. "Miles, you're misunderstanding," Allison said. "Can I?" Miles pulled the photos out of his pocket and threw them in front of Allison. The room fell silent. People began to whisper in low voices. Eric took a step back. "Miles, it's not as straightforward as you're thinking," Allison said softly. "So make it straight. Tell the truth, Allison." After a few moments of silence, Allison bowed her head. "We can't talk here," she said. Miles clenched his fist and walked out of the event hall without saying a word. That night, Miles's mind was restless. The pain of betrayal was tearing his heart out. But he had decided the game was about to end. The next morning, Miles summoned some of the most trusted members of his security company. "This fight isn't just between me and Allison. There is something else in it. I have to figure it out." His intention was clear. He would keep the net open no matter how far it took him. And that's where the story took a new turn. The next morning, Miles Carter sat in his office, staring at the documents and photographs that Nicholas had given him. There was a mixture of exhaustion and fury in her eyes. The feeling of betrayal was causing a deep prick in his chest, but Miles knew that he could not weaken his fight by being driven by emotions. She had questions, and she wanted answers from Eric Daniels and Allison. "Nicholas," said Miles, picking up the phone, "you've got to do a thorough background check on Eric. Banking records, client lists, travel history. I need everything. And of course, put Allison's phone on track, too." "Got it, boss," Nicholas replied briefly. As soon as he hung up the phone, Miles got up from his chair and looked out the window. The faint rays of the sun were beginning to awaken the city, but the darkness in his mind had deepened. A few hours later, Nicholas placed a folder in front of Miles. "Boss, Eric's background is shocking. He's not just an investment banker." "What do you mean?" asked Miles, annoyed. "Eric's real name is Eric Walsh. He previously owned an investment firm in New York. But 5 years ago, the firm was accused of financial fraud and money laundering. He defrauded many investors and made millions of dollars disappear. Since then, he has been using alias, name changed, and keeping a low profile." Miles' eyes lit up with anger. "And Allison? Where does she fit into it?" "We don't know the whole truth yet, but the connection between the two is deep. Allison has traveled to New York several times in the past year, and each time Eric's location was in the same city." Miles closed the file. "I'll have to talk to Eric himself." That night, Miles sent Eric a secret message which read, "Be ready to meet me. I know who you are. You only have one chance to tell the truth." Eric replied briefly, "Golden Lounge, 11 p.m. Come alone." The Golden Lounge, a high-end bar on the outskirts of the city, was where only a handful of people could enter. Miles parked his car and entered. The place was shrouded in darkness, the sound of light jazz music echoing in the background. Eric Daniels was sitting in a corner. Her smile was still full of the same confidence. "Miles Carter," said Eric, picking up his drink. "You found me." "It's time to end the story, Eric," Miles said as he sat down in front of him. "What do you think, Miles? Is it all just an affair between your wife and me?" Eric's laugh was mild but venomous. "It's much bigger than that." "Then tell me. I want the whole truth." Eric placed his glass on the table and took a deep breath. "Your wife, Allison, is the daughter of a very old client of mine. Her father had left me a huge debt, and he told me to recover it at any cost. Allison was part of the game from the start, Miles." Miles's face turned white. "You're lying." "Can I?" Eric pulled a small phone out of his jacket pocket and threw it in front of Miles. There were recordings on the phone, conversations between Allison and Eric. "I've got to do it all, Eric. Miles must never know the truth. If he finds out, it'll all be over." Every word pierced Miles's heart. "Have you ever wondered why your wife works so late at night? Why does she go to New York so often? Because she was working for me, Miles." Miles clenched his fist. His eyes were red. "You have destroyed my family." "No, Miles. Your wife destroyed you. I'm just a pawn in this game." Eric finished his glass and stood up. "But the game isn't over yet. The next step is in your hands." Eric walked away and Miles sat alone. His world was shattered. That night Miles confronted Allison. "Is this all true, Allison? Were you conspiring against me?" Allison had tears in her eyes. "Miles, I can explain everything to you." "No," Miles interrupted. "You've run out of time to explain. I'm going to finish this game now." Miles picked up his jacket and headed for the door. This fight was no longer just between Miles and Allison. This fight was against the forces that were playing the game from behind the scenes. Miles knew he couldn't turn back now. A new war had begun in the darkness. The next morning, Miles Carter's eyes hardly blinked. Eric's words and Allison's face kept spinning in his mind. The weight of the betrayal was so heavy on his shoulders that he could not even breathe. He knew it wasn't just a personal issue. It was a deep-rooted conspiracy that was hell-bent on destroying not just his family, but his business, his reputation, and perhaps his life. Nicholas was already in the office, flashing a long series of data on his computer screen. Miles opened the door, and Nicholas immediately turned his chair. "Boss, we did an in-depth investigation of Eric's bank records. He's not just a financial criminal. He is part of a larger criminal network. He is laundering black money through many fake companies." "And Allison?" Miles' voice was as cold as ice. "Allison's name has also been found in some documents." "It's like he's not just a pawn," Nichols said. "She was also a co-signer in some transactions." Miles clenched his fist. "It's not just an affair, Nicholas. This is a conspiracy to take everything away from me." Nicholas hesitantly said, "Boss, we have more. A few more records of Eric and Allison's conversation have been found. It's like they're hollowing out your company from the inside. Eric has also got some of your trusted employees on his side." Fire lit up in Miles' eyes. "I built this company with blood, sweat, and tears. I won't let anyone destroy it." Nicholas handed out a file to Miles. "This is a list of employees who are working for Eric, and there are some bank transactions here which make it clear that they are being given a hefty amount." Miles picked up the file and took a deep breath. "Nicholas, we have to gather evidence. Every step has to be taken carefully." "And what to do with Allison?" Miles thought for a moment. "I won't talk to him right now. Not yet. First, I will prepare the ground for my fight." That evening, Miles began reviewing his company's financial documents. He looked closely at every transaction, every sign-off, every agreement. Slowly, a pattern began to emerge. Eric had systematically stalled the company's important projects. A large amount of money was invested in projects that were never to be completed. "Nicholas," Miles said, "we have to thoroughly investigate these projects. Prepare a list of all contractors, all suppliers, and make sure our internal systems are secured. No data should reach Eric." Nicholas nodded. "Boss, I'm going to start working on this." Miles also called his company's security officer, Frank. "Frank, I want you to check every employee, every email, every call log, and if you find any suspicious activity, let me know right away." "I understand, sir," Frank replied briefly. In the dark of night, Miles was sitting alone in his office. Allison's face floated before his eyes. His voice, his smile, everything seemed like a lie now. "You betrayed me, Allison," she said to herself. His phone vibrate. There was an unknown number on the screen. "Miles Carter," came a woman's voice on the other side. "Who are you?" "My name is Clara. I know something about Eric and Allison." "Where did you get that number?" "It doesn't matter. If you want to know the truth, meet at Harbor Park tomorrow morning at 8. Come alone." The line was cut. Miles put the phone down and took a deep breath. It could have been another trap. But if that were true, maybe he'd find out something that could prove to be a game-changer for him. The next morning, Miles arrived at Harbor Park. The park was almost empty. A gentle, cold breeze was blowing. A woman was sitting on a bench. Her long brown hair was blowing in the wind. He saw Miles approaching and motioned for him to sit down. "Are you Clara?" asked Miles. "Yes," said Clara. There was fear in his eyes. "I used to work for Eric, but I realized my mistake too late. You know what? Eric just doesn't want to end your company. He wants to kill you too. He has prepared legal papers against you, which can implicate you on charges of fraud and improper fund management. And Allison, she's totally involved in it too." Miles's breathing quickened. "Do you have proof?" Clara gave a small pen drive to Miles. "It contains all the files that I secretly downloaded. It contains emails, bank records, and more between Eric and Allison. Why are you doing all this?" "Because I want to lighten the burden on my soul." Clara stood up and hurried out of the park. Miles put the pen drive in his pocket and quickened his steps. The end of the game was approaching. That night, Miles was sitting in his office reviewing files and emails. The evidence given by Clara was solid. Both Eric and Allison's involvement was obvious. "Nicholas," Miles said, picking up the phone, "this is war, and I'm going to win it." In the darkness, Miles's face was glowing in the light of the computer screen. He now had proof, and he had determination. It was time to end the game. Miles had completely abandoned sleep that night. Emails between Eric and Allison flashed on the computer screen in front of him, bank statements and confidential documents. Every word, every transaction pierced his heart like a knife. On the one hand, his wife who betrayed him, and on the other his best friend who stabbed him in the back. But now he had proof. Nicholas sat in front of him, his eyes full of fatigue and anxiety. "Boss, we have enough evidence. If we present all this in court, both Eric and Allison will have to go to jail for a long time." But what, Nicholas?" Miles fixed his sharp eyes on Nicholas. "But Eric is just a pawn. Somebody else is behind him. Somebody who is controlling this whole game. It's not just against you, Miles. It's something bigger." Miles took a deep breath. "Did you figure out who's behind Eric?" Nicholas held out a file to him. "This person is Marcus Weldon, a billionaire investor who holds several companies in his grasp. Eric was just one part of her plans. Marcus's real motive is to acquire your company and then break it into pieces and sell it." "Marcus Weldon." Miles repeated the name. "I've heard of him. He's a hunter." "That's right, boss. And Allison, she was just a pawn. It was prepared by Marcus. Eric and Allison's relationship was real, but their intentions were being driven from somewhere else." Miles closed his eyes, and for a moment everything was quiet. Then he said softly, "Nicholas, we have to fight this battle on two fronts, court on one side and Marcus's network on the other. We have to be mindful of every step." The next day, Miles arrived to meet his attorney, Adam Collins. Adam was an experienced lawyer who handled big-ticket corporate scandals. "Miles, the evidence you have is solid, but we have to tread carefully. People like Marcus Weldon are dangerous. If he has targeted you, it means that he is already prepared." "Can we go to court with this evidence?" asked Miles. "Yes, but we have to do it slowly. We have to get Eric and Allison to the legal clampdown first. Once they break down, we'll get more evidence against Marcus." "And Allison?" Miles' voice was painful. "The evidence against him is very strong, but if he is willing to testify in our favor, we can give him a lesser sentence." Miles clenched his fist. "She's my wife, Adam. I've loved him, but what he has done cannot be forgiven." That same evening, Miles called Allison to meet him face to face. The two met in an old restaurant which once witnessed their first date. Allison was already there. His eyes were tired, but he still had the fake firmness he had maintained over the years. "Did you call me?" he said in a low voice. "What do you think, Allison?" Miles' voice trembled, but there was clarity in it. "You thought I'd never be able to reach the truth?" "Miles, I'm sorry." Tears welled up in her eyes. "Shall I forgive? You tried to destroy my life, my company, my faith, everything. And you say I forgive you. I have made mistakes. But Eric, he framed me. He forced me. Don't lie, Allison. I've read your emails. You knew everything. You did it of your own free will. Miles, now you have a chance, Allison. If you testify for me, you may be relieved. But if you tell another lie, I'll take both you and Eric to hell." Allison took a deep breath. There was fear in his eyes. "Okay, I'll testify." Miles slid his chair back and stood up. "This is your last chance, Allison. If you lose it, I'll never forgive you." Over the next few weeks, Miles, Nicholas, and Adam prepared a strong case. Eric was arrested. Allison promised to testify, but her every move was being monitored. Marcus Weldon was still playing the game from behind the scenes, but Miles knew his moves were now counting. Nicholas put another report in front of Miles. "Boss, Marcus has made another move against your company. He's bought the contractors for your biggest project. If this project stops, your company may go bankrupt." Miles took a deep breath. "Nicholas, we must complete this project. And Marcus Weldon, I have something special for him." In the darkness, Miles's face was glowing in the light of the computer screen. There was no longer fear in his eyes, but a clear plan. It wasn't just a fight, it was a war, and Miles Carter knew how to win him. Miles looked out of his office window at the city's flashing lights. There was a cold resolve on his face with fatigue. Nicholas stood beside him, a bundle of fresh documents in his hands. "The boss, Marcus Weldon, has bought the contractors. The 3 main suppliers are now in his pocket. If we can't pay them on time, our biggest project, the Aurora Skyline, will come to a halt." Miles looked at the papers carefully. "Have you talked to backup suppliers?" "Yes, but the prices are double and deadlines impossible. Marcus has completely taken over the market." Miles put his hand on his chin. "He wants to bring us to our knees. But he's forgotten one thing, Nicholas. I built this company with my blood and sweat. I'm not going to let it fall so easily." Nicholas nodded slightly. "So what's our next step?" "Marcus's greatest weapon is money. He can buy the system, but I'll trap him in my tricks. We have to take a step that he can't even imagine." The next morning, Miles called a confidential meeting with his team. The doors to the boardroom closed, and the curtains were dropped. "Our Aurora Skyline project is not just a building. This is our identity. Marcus thinks he can stop it, but we'll show him that the real strength is in planning and teamwork." "Are you thinking of an alternative plan?" asked Adam in a serious tone. "Yes," Miles put on a map board. "We will divert our focus. Officially, the Aurora Skyline will be pushed forward at a slower pace, but basically, we'll start construction on an alternative site. This will confuse Marcus, and by the time he reaches the truth, we will have finished 60% of the work." "It's risky," Adam said worriedly. "The risky thing is to do nothing. We'll have to dodge Marcus. Nicholas, you'll take care of it. Only 5 people will know about this plan. Me, you, Adam, Finance Chief Clara, and Site Manager David." Nicholas nodded seriously. "I trust you, boss." That same evening, Miles met Allison. This was their second meeting, but this time the atmosphere was far more serious. "You promised you would testify," Miles said. "I will, Miles. But Marcus, he's not just a man. He has the power, and you have no idea how far he can go." "I know, Allison, but you have been given a chance to correct your mistake. If you step back, you'll have everything to lose. And if I testify, what will happen? You will be protected, and perhaps you will get a chance to rebuild yourself." Allison shook her head, holding back tears in her eyes. "Okay, I'll testify." Marcus Weldon sat in his penthouse office, smoking a cigar, watching the city. In front of him, the big screen showed the live project feed of Miles' company. "Miles Carter, you're trying to fight, but you've lost this battle." Marcus's phone rang. He had a colleague on the line. "Sir, Miles' Aurora Skyline project is still active, but something strange is happening. Some of their resources are being diverted to another site." Marcus raised his eyebrows. "The other site? Let me figure everything out, check every shift, every truck, every employee. I want to stay one step ahead." "Yes, sir." Marcus extinguished the cigar. "Miles, you can play tricks, but I'm a master of this game." Over the next few weeks, Miles and his team carried out their plan with precision. Work was going on fast at the second site. Marcus's teams tried to explore the site several times, but each time they found the wrong information. Nicholas was present on the site day and night, keeping an eye on every detail. "Boss, it's a work in progress, but Marcus is trying to track us down." "Let him track down Nicholas. By the time he realizes, we will be far ahead of him. Marcus eventually got a clue to Miles's new site. He reached there with his men, but his face turned white after seeing the scene there. "Here. It's just an empty place here." Miles's voice echoed behind him. "What do you think, Marcus?" "I'll let you get to my real plan," Marcus reflexed. Miles stood in front of him, full of confidence. "It was all a trap, Marcus. You've never seen my real project. Your whole plan revolved around my map." Marcus had anger and disappointment on his face. "It's not over, Miles. This is just the beginning." "No, Marcus, it's the end for you, because now I have evidence against you. Your illegal dealings, your fraud, and every dirty secret in your company." A look of fear appeared on Marcus's face. "Now this battle will be fought in court, and I will make sure that you can never repeat your moves." Marcus's face flushed with anger, but he knew there was truth in Miles' words. Miles took a deep breath. The battle wasn't over, but he won the first game. Miles stopped his car in front of a deserted warehouse. It was raining lightly outside the window, and there was a strange uneasiness with moisture in the air. Nicholas and Adam were already waiting for him inside. Inside the warehouse there was a pile of old wooden boxes and rusty tools in low light. "Why are we here, Miles?" asked Adam, worried. Miles put a folder on the table. "All of this is the first step to dismantling Marcus Weldon's empire." Nicholas opened the folder. Inside were several documents, bank statements, and evidence of transactions of shell companies. "Where did these documents come from?" asked Adam, flipping through the file. "Allison had told us a few things, but the real evidence we got came from David Blount, a former employee of Weldon Enterprises. He was part of Marcus's most secretive plans, but when he was sidelined, he put everything in front of us." Nicholas carefully looked at the documents. "These evidences can eliminate Marcus entirely: money laundering, tax fraud, and manipulation of government contracts. But we have to use them at the right time." Miles nodded. "All right, but it's not all a paper game. Marcus's people are watching our every move, and we have to plan our next step soon." That night, Miles called Clara to a safe location. "You have to understand, Clara, if we make a mistake, our whole company can be ruined." Clara looked into his eyes. "I know, Miles. I've invested my whole life in this company. I'm with you, no matter what." Miles handed over some documents to Clara. "Keep these files in a safe place. If anything happens to me, hand them over directly to the federal authorities." Clara took a deep breath as she handled the documents. "Do you really think it's that dangerous?" "Marcus isn't just a businessman, Clara. He's a hunter. And to defeat the hunter, you have to get ahead of his game." The next day, Miles visited the Aurora Skyline site. The workers there were seen in tension. The site supervisor came to David Miles. "Sir, we have been informed by many suppliers that they will no longer be able to deliver us. They have priorities for other projects." There was no expression on Miles' face. "This is another move from Marcus. He wants to stop us without resources. But he forgot that the project is not just based on cement and steel. It rests on our spirits." David shook his head. "Can we find an alternative supplier?" "Nicholas is working on it. But till then, we have to make better use of the resources that we have." Miles picked up the microphone and spoke to all the workers on site. "Hey guys, we know we're going through a tough time. Supplies are shutting down, pressure is mounting, and everyone thinks we're going to go broke. But every brick, every beam of this building will be a testimony to our hard work and perseverance. We will not stop until this project is completed." The workers clapped. Their enthusiasm returned. On the other hand, Marcus Weldon was restless in his office. She called her most trusted colleague, John Ford. "Miles Carter is still standing firm. I cut off his supplies, intimidated his team, but he's still not giving up." John said in a low voice, "Sir, maybe we should attack Miles directly. His weakness is his team and his family." A cold smile appeared on Marcus's face. "Great idea, John. Miles' greatest strength is his greatest weakness. Should we target someone? Nicholas. He is Miles's right-hand man. Remove it, and keep an eye on Adam. If he bends, we'll buy him. Nicholas was driving his car that night when he realized a black SUV was following him. He increased the speed, but the car came closer. Suddenly, a truck came out of the front, and Nicholas's car crashed into a roadside barrier. Nicholas somehow got out of the car, blood flowing from his forehead. The masked man in front pointed a gun at him. "You must leave all this, Nicholas. This fight is not your cup of tea." "If you think you can stop Miles by scaring me," Nicholas said with a pained laugh, "you're making a big mistake." The masked man tried to press the trigger, but suddenly the sound of police sirens echoed. He ran away. Nicholas called Miles as he fell on the side of the road. "Boss, they attacked me. This fight has become even more dangerous now." There was an iron chill in Miles's voice. "You're all right, Nicholas. I won't let you lose. And this fight is no longer just a business battle. It's a war." Nicholas said with a slight laugh, "Then again, boss, let's show them what real power is." Miles hung up the phone and looked out the window. Raindrops were falling on the glass. "Marcus, you've made this fight personal. Now I'm going to beat you at your own game." Miles' fist clenched. The battle had now reached its final stage. Miles took a deep breath as he looked out of his office window. The light of the city was shining lightly on his face, but the storm inside him was not taking the name of stopping. The attack on Nicholas changed everything. It was not just a business battle, but a personal battle. "Nicholas is being given security in the hospital," said Clara in a low voice, standing behind Miles. "But we have to be more vigilant. Marcus can go to any lengths now." Miles looked back at Clara. The fire of determination was burning in his eyes. "I gave her a lot of chances, Clara, but now that line has been crossed. He wanted to kill the man closest to me. Now I won't back down." "So what's our next move?" asked Clara in a lighter voice. "Marcus's weakness is his greed. He always wants more, and that's his biggest weakness. We have to bring him to a situation where he gets caught in his own trap." The next day, Miles called Adam into his office. "Adam, I want you to reach out to some of the trusted people at Weldon Enterprises. There will be many people out there who will be fed up with Marcus's atrocities. We need their help." Adam nodded. "I would try, but it could be dangerous. If Marcus finds out that I am talking to people from the inside, then—" "So we have to be careful," Miles said, putting his hand on Adam's shoulder. "I won't leave you alone. That's the team's mission, and we're not going to give up on each other." Adam smiled and said, "Okay, boss, let me begin." That same night, Adam met David Ross, manager of Weldon Enterprises, at an old club. "You have no idea how much danger you are, Adam. Marcus watches over your every move," David said in a trembling voice. "And how many more days can you save yourself, David?" said Adam in a restrained voice. "You know how dangerous this guy is. How many people's lives has he ruined? If we can stop him, why not try?" David took a deep breath. "All right, I have some documents with me, information about some of Marcus's secret projects and his illegal transactions, but I can't give you these files here. Come to my house tomorrow night. I'll give you everything." Adam nodded in agreement and walked out of the club. But he had no idea that anyone was watching his every move. John Ford was standing in front of Marcus in his office. "Meeting Adam Ross. He's talking to some of our people. I think he's preparing for something big," John said. Marcus said with a deep smile, "Then again, let him go. I want him to gather evidence, and when he's about to hand everything over to Miles, we'll catch them." The next night, Adam arrived at David Ross's house. There was a faint light outside the house, and there was silence. Adam knocked on the door. There was no response. "David?" Adam knocked on the door again. Suddenly the door opened slightly. It was dark inside. Adam stepped slowly. David's body was lying on the floor inside. He had a pen drive in his hand which had traces of blood on it. "Oh, no," Adam whispered. Suddenly, someone pointed a gun at his head from behind. "You're in the wrong place, buddy." Adam slowly raised both hands. "Listen, I just came to pick up the files. Don't drag me into this. It's too late." But then a loud voice came from outside the window. A bullet knocked the gun out of the attacker's hand. "Crouch down, Adam!" Miles was firing from near the window. He quickly pulled Adam out. "Quick, get in the car!" shouted Miles. Adam and Miles jumped into the car and quickly drove away. Bullets continued to fire from behind, but they disappeared into the darkness. A few hours later, Miles and Adam arrived at a safe place. Adam handed the pen drive to Miles. "That's all, Miles. David saved this file by giving his life. We have to end it." Miles looked at the pen drive. "This may be the key to our victory. But Marcus has become even more dangerous now. We have to be more careful than ever." Adam took a deep breath. "So, what are you going to do now?" "Now," said Miles in a serious tone, "we'll take the fight to his doorstep. We will beat Marcus every step of the way." Raindrops were falling on the window. The darkness outside and the silence inside signaled an approaching storm. Miles knew that the battle had reached its final stages. There was a deep silence in Miles's office. Adam was sitting in front of him. Worry and fatigue were evident in his eyes. "What's in it can bring us victory or finish us off," Miles said, staring at the pen drive on the desk. "We don't have much time, Miles," Adam said in a low voice. "Marcus has found out that we have come close to him. He won't take long to take the next step." Miles clenched his fist. "We have to take advantage of his weakness. He considers himself the strongest, but his biggest weakness is his ego." "Can't we hand this file directly to the police or the media?" he asked. "No," Miles said in a cold voice. "If we did that, he would use his power and money to destroy every piece of evidence. We don't have to play this game according to its rules. We have to kill him where he gets hurt the most, among his trusted ones." Marcus was sitting in his luxurious office. There were some special people of his team standing in front. "The trick that Miles has made is interesting," Marcus said, giving a light tap on the desk with his fingers. "But he's forgetting that I'm always one step ahead. If he thinks he can beat me, he's making a mistake." Her right-hand man, John Ford, stepped forward. "We've tracked down a few people from Miles. They are trying to infiltrate our internal network. Should we eliminate them?" Marcus shook his head and said, "No. Let them do their job. I know Miles will come straight to me this time. I want us to have his reception ready when he comes." On the other hand, Miles had called a meeting with his team at a safe place. Clara, Adam, and some trusted people were there. "Marcus is on alert all the time. We have to do something he doesn't expect," Miles said, showing a map. "This is a map of an underground storage of the Weldon Enterprise. Here are the illegal transactions of Marcus and some secret files. We have to get there," Adam said suspiciously. "That place will be as safe as a fortress. Will we be able to do it?" "We have to," Miles said coldly. "This is our last chance." The next night, Miles, Adam, and Clara sneak into the Weldon Enterprise's storage through a secret tunnel. The tunnel was dark and narrow. The sound of dripping water and the movement of rats in the distance made the atmosphere frightening. "We'll go straight to the storage room from here, but we have to be careful. Any mistake can cost us lives," Miles said in a whisper. Adam went on to say, "If we get the files, we can end Marcus's empire forever." They slowly made their way to the storage room. Miles opened the door gently. Many files and computer systems were kept inside. "Hurry up," said Clara. "We have to gather everything." But then a shadow fell on the door. "Do you think you're going to get this far?" a cold voice echoed. Marcus was standing at the door with some of his guards with him. "You thought you would be able to get to this place and I wouldn't stop you," said Marcus, laughing. Miles gently beckoned to Clara and Adam behind him. "You think you're going to win by catching us here? You have no idea how far we've thought." Marcus picked up the pistol and pointed it at Miles. "This game is over now, Miles." But just then Clara threw a smoke bomb and smoke spread all around. "Run!" shouted Miles. The smoke was so thick that nothing could be seen. Miles, Clara, and Adam quickly ran toward another secret door. "Here!" said Adam, pushing the door. They somehow managed to get out. Gunshots and screams could be heard from behind. A few hours later, Miles and his team arrived at a safe haven. He had all the secret documents of Marcus in his hand. "That's all," Clara said in a tired tone. "Every transaction, every secret project, everything." "It's not just documents, it's the end of Marcus's empire," Miles said, picking up the pen drive. "Now we have to get it into the right hands." "What's next?" asked Adam. "Now," said Miles, taking a deep breath, "we'll end this game. Marcus will be punished for his mistakes." There was chaos in Marcus's office. His men were running, the phones were ringing non-stop. "How did Miles do it?" said Marcus, shouting angrily. His empire was collapsing. Police cars were parked outside his properties. His illegal activities were exposed on news channels. Marcus picked up his gun and looked out the window, saying, "It's not over, Miles. It's not over." But perhaps the game was literally over for him. Adam took a deep breath and inhaled the cold air into his lungs. Before him was the infinite expanse of the sea, the waves crashing against the shore and calming down as if comforting him. His eyes were ruddy, and his hands trembled slightly. He had been standing in this place for hours, wondering what to do next. The phone in his pocket vibrated several times, but he didn't even notice. Perhaps he knew there was nothing else in those messages, just more threats and reminders that he had fallen into a trap. His mind was still repeating the events of the past few hours. Olivia's face turned before her eyes. Her smile, once a symbol of love and trust, now seemed a false mask. Adam had realized how much he had lost: his home, his honor, his peace. But the biggest loss was her own daughter, Ellie. He took a small photo out of his jacket pocket. Ellie, on her 7th birthday, was smiling, standing beside the cake. There was a glow of joy on her face and her little hand on Adam's shoulder. "I will save you at any cost," he whispered to himself. Adam pulled out his phone and dialed a number. A cold and steady voice came from the other side. "You still think you can win this game, Adam? Your every move has already been seen. Your daughter is just a pawn now, and your wife, it's a part of our game now." Adam took a deep breath. "I'll end it here. No matter what, I will expose you." "Well then, good luck, Mr. Adam. The game has begun." The phone was disconnected. Adam clenched his fist as he stared at the phone. Everything was clear now. He would have to defeat his enemies in the same fashion as they were defeating him. He got back in his car and drove off the highway. There was silence on the streets, the yellow light of the streetlights making the road deserted. Her destination was obvious: an old warehouse on the outskirts of town where Olivia was last seen. As soon as Adam got there, he parked his car away and walked towards the warehouse. His heart was pounding at every step. He knew it might be a trap, but he had no other choice. He slowly opened the gate and peered inside. A faint light was shining within the warehouse, and the air there smelled of moisture and rot. He looked around her. Boxes scattered around, broken furniture, and webs on the walls. Suddenly he heard the sound of someone's footsteps. He hid behind a pole and held his breath gently. A few seconds later, Olivia was in front of him. His face was tired, and there were tears in his eyes. "Adam, I'm sorry," she whispered. "Are you really apologizing, Olivia? Or is it part of your play?" Adam's voice trembled but firm. I made a mistake. But I was stuck, Adam. They threatened me. If I didn't follow their rules, they would have killed Eli. You should have trusted me. Adam's throat choked. We could have solved it together. But it's too late now. Olivia's voice began to break. They're here, Adam. They are watching us. At the same time, a faint applause came from the other side of the gate. Adam and Olivia both looked there. A tall, dark shadow was slowly moving towards them. Great, Adam, the man said with a cold smile. You really found your wife. But now, this will be your last night. Adam pulled out a small knife from inside his jacket. I'll stop you, no matter what happens. The man laughed, his voice deep and menacing. You think you can beat me with a knife? Look, Adam, this battle is far bigger than you can imagine. You're just a pawn. But Adam was ready. The man rushed toward her, but Adam stepped fast and rammed the knife into her thigh. The man screamed in pain and backed away. Olivia picked up a box and smashed it over the man's head. Run, Adam, cried Olivia. Adam grabbed Olivia's hand and the two ran out of the warehouse. Gunshots echoed from behind, but they disappeared into the darkness. After reaching the car, Adam quickly started the engine and headed towards the city. His breathing was rapid and tears were flowing from Olivia's eyes. What are you going to do now, Adam? Asked Olivia in a trembling voice. We're going to play the game by our own rules, not by their rules, Adam said. It's time to attack them. The road ahead was difficult, but Adam knew there was no choice but to retreat now. He placed his daughter's picture on the dashboard of the car and drove on the dark highway. The game had begun, but this time the line between prey and predator was blurring. Adam, James, Liam, and Olivia stood in front of a large map. The layout of the harbor stretched out in front of them, red marks indicating places where potential hazards could occur. We just have one chance, James said in a serious tone. Ethan should feel like he's in control. Olivia, you'll be close to him. We will handle the situation in the background. If something went wrong, say code red. Adam looked at Olivia. There was a mixture of worry and trust in his eyes. If at any time you feel threatened, step back. I can't lose you. Olivia nodded lightly. I'll be fine. We have to save Eli. The night began to darken. There were few security forces at the port gate, but Adam knew that Ethan's men would be stationed around. Olivia wore a light blue coat and tied her hair back. There was a slight expression of nervousness on his face, which was part of this game. Come on, he said, taking a deep breath. Adam, James, and Liam took their positions. James was in the guard tower above the container yard, while Liam was hiding behind a truck. Adam was hiding in the back of the harbor, from where he could keep an eye on the entire area. Olivia slowly approached the large container placed in the middle of the harbor. The sound of his high heels echoed in the deserted area. Ethan was standing near the container, 4 armed men stationed around him. You came, Ethan said with a smile. I thought you were going to run away. I want Allie back, Ethan. Olivia's voice trembled. End it all. I'll obey you. Just leave Eli. Ethan laughed. Olivia, you still don't understand. This game is out of your control. Eli is safe with me, but you're a burden now. At her behest, a man pointed a gun at Olivia. Code red, Olivia said in a trembling voice. Suddenly, gunshots echoed in the air. James targeted the shooter first. Adam rushed to the container while Liam overpowered the other guard. Guns were roaring, cars were making a dragging noise. Ethan began to retreat, but Adam saw him. He jumped and knocked Ethan to the ground. It's over, Ethan, said Adam, grabbing his collar. You think you won? Laughed Ethan. You think Eli is safe? You're so naive, Adam. This network is much bigger than me. Shut up, said Adam angrily as he pulled the phone out of his jacket pocket. The last message on the phone was flashing. Plan B activated. Location, Warehouse 9. James and Liam came closer. We've got to go to Warehouse 9 right now, said James. Adam picked him up, jerking Ethan's arm. You'll go with us, and if anything happens to Eli, I won't leave you. Over the next 10 minutes, they were standing outside Warehouse 9. There was a faint light inside, and a shadow seemed to be stirring. Adam's heart was pounding. "Come on," he said, taking a deep breath. They slowly entered. Inside sat Eli in a small cage, tears in her eyes. "Papa!" she cried. Adam's eyes filled with tears of anger and relief. He ran quickly to open the door of the cage and took Eli in his arms. "It's all right, son. I am here." "But," Ethan's voice echoed, "it's not over." James pointed his gun at her. "Over it, Ethan," James said. "The FBI is going to be here. Your game is over." The sound of police sirens echoed from outside. A few hours later, Adam, Eli, and Olivia were standing near a police van. Ethan had been handcuffed and was being put in a police car. "What will happen now?" asked Olivia in a low voice. "Now we'll start again," Adam said, "but this time with a stronger foundation." Eli held his father's hand tightly. The darkness of the night was beginning to dissipate. A faint golden line of sun shone on the horizon. It was a sign of a new beginning, but Adam knew that the story did not end there. Some of the shadows were still hidden. Some questions were yet to be answered. The cold night breeze was blowing over the ruins of the harbor. The first rays of the sun were slowly emerging on the horizon. Police cars and emergency services were scattered around the warehouse. Adam was holding his daughter Eli in his arms, gazing at the horizon with tired but satisfied eyes. Olivia stood beside them, a mixture of relief and remorse on her face. "It's over, Adam," Olivia said in a low voice. Adam looked at her with a slight smile. "No, Olivia, it's not over. It's just the end of a chapter." In front of them, Ethan was being seated in a police van. There was defeat and irritation in his eyes. He had given up, but his smile was still mysterious. "Adam!" came James running from behind, a file in his hand. "We've got something." Adam opened the file. Inside was a bundle of documents, including international bank transfers, arms dealings, and a list of names. "This network is much bigger than Ethan," Adam said in a whisper. "This was just the beginning." "Shall we give it up?" said Liam in a serious tone. Adam looked at Eli, then at Olivia. He took a deep breath and said, "No. But now we have to move smarter. For Eli, for us." 2 weeks later, Adam's family had settled in a quiet town. The house was small, but safe and full of warmth. Eli was preparing for the first day of her new school. Olivia was preparing breakfast in the kitchen, and Adam was standing outside on the lawn enjoying the sunlight. James's car stopped in front of the house. He seemed to be in a hurry. "You said you'd stay away from it," said Olivia, standing in the doorway. "I know," said Adam in a serious tone. "But some things can't be left unfinished. It will never end, Adam. If you go into it again, we'll be back where we started." Adam looked into Olivia's eyes. "This is the last time. I have to finish it so that Eli never has to fight this battle." 3 months later, an international crime network was exposed. Many big criminals were arrested around the world. Ethan's network had completely collapsed. The FBI and Interpol also cut off the last ends of the network through a joint operation. Adam's efforts were kept in secrecy, but his work gave many families a life of security. A year later, Adam, Olivia, and Eli were sitting in a park. The sun was setting and the sky was bathed in pink and golden light. "Papa, is everything okay now?" Eli looked at Adam with his big, innocent eyes. Adam lightly touched his daughter's cheeks and smiled. "Yes, son. Everything is fine now." Olivia held Adam's hand. "Now we have to move on, Adam. The wounds of the past must no longer be exposed." Adam took a deep breath and looked up at the sky. "Now we will make a new beginning, without fear, without regrets." The sun had completely set. There was silence all around in the park, but there was peace in Adam's heart now. She had weathered the biggest storm, fought the hardest battle, and finally she had secured her family. The story ends there, but it was a new beginning in Adam's world.